Vietnam's economy is absolutely booming, right? It's one of the fastest growing in the world. But here's a thought. What if all that future success actually hinges on a single high-stakes test that pretty much every university student has to pass?
So in this explainer, we're going to dig into one very specific rule in Vietnam's education system. And you'll see how it has this huge, massive ripple effect on the country's entire economic future. It's fascinating.
Okay, so where does this all begin? Well, it starts with a single regulation from Vietnam's Ministry of Education and Training. You'll see it called MUET. And this one rule, it basically shapes the entire university experience for students. The rule itself is actually pretty simple. It says that a student's final exam has to count for at least 50% of their total grade. Think about that. Half of everything you've worked for all semester comes down to one test. It's a single, high-stakes hurdle that can literally make or break your grade.
Now, you might be thinking, wait, couldn't educators just use something else like a big project or an oral exam? And yeah, technically they can. But the research is really clear on this. When people are under pressure, they just default to what they know. And for most teachers, what they know is the good old-fashioned written final, the same kind they probably took when they were students.
So, okay, what's the big deal, right? It's just a test. Well, it turns out this one little rule creates some really significant and probably unintended problems, not just for the students, but for the entire economy. This focus on one giant test creates this whole cascade of problems. For starters, it triggers massive test anxiety, which, can totally skew the results. It also encourages cramming, you know the drill, just memorizing facts long enough to spit them out on the test instead of actually learning the material. But the biggest issue? It completely fails to build the practical real-world skills that employers are crying out for.
And this is where you really see the disconnect. A World Bank study found that almost 80%, that's nearly 4 out of 5, Vietnamese employers need their employees to be able to deliver persuasive presentations. I mean, that's a huge demand, and it's a skill a written exam just can't teach. It can't even measure it.
So, the big question is, how do you fix this? How do you bridge that massive gap between the classroom and the actual workplace? Well, the research points to a really powerful alternative.
It's a concept called authentic assessment. And the idea is actually simple, but it's also kind of profound. Instead of just testing what a student can remember, you test their ability to apply that knowledge. You give them real-world challenges, the exact kinds of tasks they're going to face in their future jobs.
And this comparison here really shows you the fundamental shift. You're moving away from just memorization and recall and over to application and creation. Instead of just answering questions by yourself, you're performing real-world tasks, often as part of a team. The goal isn't just to get a grade anymore. The assessment itself becomes a tool for learning.
Okay, so this sounds great in theory, right? But does it actually work? Specifically, does it work for Vietnamese university students? Well, a multi-semester study decided to put that exact question to the test.
So here's what they did. Researchers at a big university in Vietnam set up an experiment. You had your control group, which got the standard 2 lectures a week. But then they had 2 treatment groups. And for these students, they cut the lectures in half, just 1 per week. And they replaced that lecture time with weekly team presentations on the course material.
And the results were absolutely staggering. I mean, get this. Even with 50% fewer lectures, the students who did the weekly presentations saw their grades just soar. The first group's grades jumped by 33% compared to the control group, and the second group, which got a little extra tutorial help, improved by an incredible 70%. 70! That's just wild. And this really hammers home a core idea in education, captured perfectly by this quote. It's not about what the teacher does, it's about what the student does. By actively presenting, working together, and grappling with the material themselves, these students just learned it on a much, much deeper level. Okay, so you've got this incredible evidence. What do you do with it? What's the path forward? Well, the research lays out a really clear 2-step plan for Vietnam's Ministry of Education. Step 1 is pretty straightforward. Change that rigid 50% rule. Loosen it up. Give educators the freedom and flexibility to design better ways of assessing their students. But step 2 is just as important. You can't just change the rule and walk away. The ministry needs to actively lead this change by offering training seminars and support to help teachers actually learn and use these new methods. You really need both for it to work. So let's zoom out for a second and connect this all back to the bigger picture. Because this isn't just about getting better grades, right? That's great. But the real prize here is so much bigger.
It's about equipping an entire generation for Vietnam's economic marathon.
I mean, Vietnam's economy is one of the world's great success stories. It's on this incredible growth trajectory. But to keep that momentum going, to really sustain it, the country needs a workforce that can do more than just memorize facts for a test. It needs creative thinkers, it needs collaborators, it needs people who can solve complex problems.
And, what's happening in Vietnam really raises a crucial question for any country anywhere. How should your education system evolve to match your economic ambitions? It's a powerful reminder that the small details of policy, something as simple as how we test students, can have a massive, massive impact on a country's ability to achieve its biggest goals. It really shows that building the future, well, it all starts in the classroom.